J.W. McGarvey years ago said this, as recorded in the Eldership on page 57. A married man certainly possesses advantages for such a work that are impossible to an unmarried man. And the experience of the world must confirm the wisdom of the requirement that the overseer shall be the husband of one wife. It may be well to add that one living wife is clearly meant, and that there is no allusion to the number of deceased wives he may have had. By the way, some real good material if you want to do some reading on the eldership. J.W. McGarvey. Another qualification in 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 2, an elder must be vigilant. This word vigilant comes from a word in the Greek which means to be awake. It carries the idea not only of being awake but also of caution. And the American Standard translates the word vigilant as temperate. You see, elders are to be watchful over themselves and those under their charge. Now remember what Paul wrote to or said to the Ephesian elders there in the city of Miletus? We read earlier in Acts chapter 20. He said, take heed therefore unto yourselves. Who are the elders to take heed to? First of all, the eldership. Take heed therefore unto yourselves and over all the flock which the Holy Ghost hath made you overseers. An elder's work begins with self and then extends to the congregation. Very important. Sin separates the guilty from God. We're aware of Isaiah 59, 1 and 2. Sin is what separates us from God. Sin is where we move away from God. And it will cause us to be lost eternally. Now, what is the role of an elder? The role of an elder is to keep the flock in line, to keep the flock corralled, to keep the flock, if you will, in the fold. Why? Because outside of the fold there are many dangers. There are wolves, false teachers. There are cliffs that a sheep may fall off of. There is rushing water where a sheep, if he gets too close, if he tries to drink from rushing water and becomes wet, he may fall in and drown. A shepherd has a great responsibility. Therefore, the importance. Take heed unto yourselves and to all the flock. In Hebrews 13:17, obey them that have the rule over you and submit yourselves. Why? For they watch for your souls. Why do we need elders? Because these men have a position as shepherds to watch over us as sheep. Now they'll give an account. What an important job, what an important responsibility they have. Religious error must be avoided. Elders are under a divine directive to stand for truth and to protect the flock from error. Notice Titus chapter 1, verses 9 through 11. Holding fast the faithful word as he hath been taught, that he may be able by sound doctrine to do what? Both to, number one, exhort. Number two, to convince the gainsayers. Why? For there are many unruly and vain talkers and deceivers, especially they of the circumcision, that is, the Jews. What's got to be done about it? Whose mouths must be stopped, who subvert whole houses, teaching things which they ought not, for filthy lucre's sake. You see, when we talk about elders, they've got to be vigilant. They cannot afford to go to sleep. They cannot afford to not know what's going on. And let me add something very important here. An elder who takes his work seriously as a shepherd is going to stay abreast of what's happening in the brotherhood. He's going to know of error that's being taught so that if that error comes in, he'll be aware of it. That's going to mean reading religious journals or papers, staying abreast of websites of other congregations, of knowing what teachers are teaching in the classroom, of what materials they're using in the classroom, where they're getting supplementary material. Why? Because they're vigilant. They're watching for our souls. Some of you are aware of what happened in this country in the last 25 or 30 years. It started in Gainesville, Florida, known as the Crossroads Movement, and it spread throughout the country. It later became known as the Boston Movement. Congregation after congregation, state after state, country after country were affected and divided. In Nashville, Tennessee, the oldest congregation there split because these false teachers came in unawares. You know how false teachers often work? They often come in and they won't get in a classroom. They won't get in the pulpit. They'll go family by family. And they'll not spring a new doctrine all at once, but often they begin with little snippets, with little ideas, with little thoughts. And at first someone says, well, I don't know about that, but they're patient. And they're sowing their seed of error. Elders, therefore, must be awake. They must be watchful. They must be vigilant. And in order to do so, they not only have to keep abreast of what's happening, they have to know the Word. They have to be able to handle the sword of the Spirit so that they are ready to defend the truth and to oppose Satan and error in every way. Furthermore, a bishop must be sober-minded. 1 Timothy chapter 3 and verse 2, Titus chapter 1 and verse 8. What is he talking about? This denotes one of sound mind. The idea here really basically boils down to self-control. The idea here is one who is sober-minded. Now certainly, an elder is going to be sober in the sense of not drunk. But that's not what's under consideration here. We've already seen that qualification negative, not given to much wine. If one is sober-minded, Webster said he's not given to frivolity. He's not flighty. He's not flippant. He's self-restrained. He uses good sense. He's not affected, Webster says, by prejudice or passion. And maybe one of the best things in this definition is well-balanced.